Hello, welcome back to the podcast. Today's conversation is one that I think is incredibly important, whether you're a business owner, manager, healthcare practitioner, team leader, or simply someone who works within an organization. We're living in a time where burnout, disengagement, stress, and staff turnover are becoming increasingly common, yet many businesses are still operating from outdated leadership models that prioritize productivity over people. My guest today is Jilly Gabrilson. Jilly has over 30 years of experience in counseling, well-being, and workplace culture, helping thousands of individuals and many organizations better understand what people need to thrive both personally and professionally. Today, we're exploring conscious leadership, workplace well-being, trust, authenticity, and why investing in people may be one of the smartest business decisions a leader can make. So welcome to the podcast, Jilly.
Hello, Harmony. Beautiful to join you. I'm very excited about this conversation. It's one that needs to be had.
Absolutely. And I want to jump straight in because when people hear the term conscious leadership, they may assume it's a sort of buzzword, right? So how do you define conscious leadership?
Conscious leadership actually applies to everyone because a leader, a true leader, is someone who walks their talk, where their feelings and thoughts are combined. And when they actually communicate with someone, people feel what they're saying and trust is automatically given.
Yeah. And so how would you say conscious leadership is conscious leadership is different from traditional leadership?
Look, you touched on it in the intro because it's so important where most businesses, across the board worldwide is about making money. And so they have money on top of the pile and the results are purely driven by the money. What we're interested in this whole new way of being and where the world needs to evolve to is where we put care and results together to be on top of the pile. So it's about our heart resonance as well as our head resonance, thoughts and feelings coming together, where we're more than just a piece of money or more than just a result, that we're actually energy and that we're needing to expand and give that into the workplace, and a leader gives that back to you. Automatic care and trust and loyalty is gained, and that is felt by the people that your customers, your clients, anyone engaging now in that kind of business model will be head and shoulders above the rest because that care carries warmth, it carries connection, and it carries perspectives that are more understanding, and it brings you outside all the AI models that can be cold and harsh and hard. And the big thing and difference with AI and us is we've got a heart.
Yeah. And people can really feel that. And I think that's really what's going to set businesses apart is and I think also that's why personal branding is such a big thing these days, because no one can be you no matter how hard they try, and they can feel what you say, like authenticity.
Yeah.
And I think you touched on a really, good point is that AI doesn't have a heart. We have a heart. And from an Ayurvedic perspective, our heart is our seat of consciousness. And AI doesn't have consciousness, it never will. And so it's so important to remember that in our leadership and to be attracting those people, whether it's a business or whether it's a sporting group or whether you're leading your family. I mean, this all applies to everyone. So why do you think leadership today, I know we've sort of touched on this, but I'd love to expand on this, it requires a completely different skill set than it did like 20 years ago? What has actually changed, and what no longer works.
Yes. Well, we're in evolution. As human beings, where we were 20 years ago, everything has changed. And we're now in a time where we're going very fast. And as you can see, all the social systems, the political systems, the environmental systems, the gender systems, they're all dismantling because they've been built like on a patriarchy where you've got, we've all got male, female inside of us, but we're talking about where it's driven by the mind, the masculine energy of control, of hierarchy, where you build systems where you have someone sitting at the top and they are the boss and everyone has to do what they say. We're moving now because there's more consciousness coming through, more light coming through. We're more inquisitive now, inquiring. We're not just like sheep following the herd that does everything the same. We're coming out of that physical reality and have so much potential inside of us. And business has potential and needs to grow into where we're headed now, into the times and days for the people, not just for the few.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always, talk in my business with my business coaching clients that your business has its own soul. It's its own entity. And we co-create with that. And I think that's so important now because things can be done so quickly these days. For example, we're both authors now. Yay, congratulations to you as well for the release of your book, Energy Matters. And at the moment, like you could just type, I don't know, go into an AI app and be like, write me a book on this topic, and it'll write a book. And then they don't even look at it and then they decide to publish it and call it their work. And it has no soul because it's not your work, it's not your wisdom, it's not your life experience and integration. And people are going to really, really see and feel that. And I mean, we do have to get with the times. AI is here and it can be a great tool for different things, and we can implement it in other aspects of our work for sure to help sort of cut down time and even maybe cost. But when it comes to that authenticity piece, it can never replace that. And so we have to be really mindful of how we use our voice, whether we're speaking like now on a podcast. Obviously, we've got no AI help here other than when I edit later, although we had to record on Zoom. So I don't know how edited this will be. but we've got no AI speaking for us, right? And hopefully our voice translates into our writing. Whereas people who are just relying and leaders who are just relying on AI to write their emails, to sort of do all the forefront work, then when you go meet them in person, there's this mismatch of who they are or who they've come across to be.
Yeah, 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 that's so true. And the bigger picture of the whole thing is coming back to the individual. No matter how big your business, corporate, multi, small business owner, wanting to get into business, creator, you come back to your passion, your heart. What energy? There's 8 billion people on the planet and everyone has their individual note. And it's the note you came in with, the purpose you came in with. And it, perhaps the whole purpose of us being here is to play that note. We get out of tune very quickly from a very early age, from conditioning and outside experiences, not understood, push down feelings. And then we're kind of out of tune and create an identity that's not truly us. And in that, we're all the time looking outside ourselves for answers and to have rewards and to be acknowledged. And this can be taken into business where what I'm really talking about is the key, even for you. What was it in you that wanted to create your business? What were you about? What was your tune? And then when you truly play from your heart, that's the true resonance. That's the core. That's the core of you, your soul, your spirit, your source, whatever you want to relate it to. That tune then is played, and it gives you a chance when you start playing it to be challenged and to have experiences and to let go and maneuver your way through to get more and more in tune with what you're about. And in business, if you're only about the money, you're not actually having a true human being experience with matching what you do and who you truly are. And when a business has purpose on top of the pile, the owner is willing to look at themselves and keep moving and changing, they will give that energy to the whole business. And authenticity builds loyalty and builds trust and builds far greater social outcomes as well as financial outcomes.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, what about the leaders or the business leaders or group leaders, even if we talk outside of the business concept, who are not that evolved yet, who are not looking at bettering themselves, and they do have people who rely on them to some degree? How do those people who rely on them, whether they're employees or whatnot, how do they start to sing to their own tune, as you were speaking about, without being affected by the poor leadership examples that they're having?
Yeah, that's a great question, Harmony. I get that all the time in my sessions because I work with the leaders, the owners, and I also work with the staff. So I get a lot of confidentiality and a lot of trust in where they're having difficulties. And I always bring it back to the individual. If you're a staff member and your boss just won't listen, won't hear, has to do it his way, her way, or whatever, you've got to come into your own trust in self, your own integrity, and be able to look at you and your reactions. If he's not listening or she's not listening, what do you do with that? Do you shut off, bring up your protection wall, get hurt, walk away, and just think things underneath and just keep doing the same thing? Or do you use your words and communications, knowing he might have had a rotten day. Things might be going on at home for him or her. And you just say, look, I'm not quite sure what you've said there. Are you able to give it to me in a different way? Or I feel what you're saying isn't really fair. Can you give me more information on what you mean about that? Or I'm not feeling what you're saying. Could you help me understand? You actually need to use communication to start getting a truer connection with your boss and yourself. But you've got to be vulnerable in where you might be shutting down and you might be pushing out and you might be turning up for work late and you might not actually be putting your best forward in there. Best foot forward. It's a pretty vulnerable place, but it's a real place, an authentic place. And that's where real change happens. And you can change the boss.
I think that's can be the scary bit is opening that communication up towards your boss or your leaders, right? People have like this sort of real fear of being able to speak their truth. And that's a really important skill to master in life, I believe. And it takes a lot of, yeah, a lot of work, a lot of no's, a lot of shutdowns, a lot of awkward moments, but definitely one that is so powerful when you can sort of, I won't say master the skill, but practice the skill. So, with workplace well-being, where can businesses, companies, organizations, where can they start, or what do you see is the best opportunity for businesses to start? Because a lot of them will invest in, I guess, like depending on what their business is about, but they will invest in professional development to do with their organization's core offering. But what about workplace well-being? Why is there sort of a resistance to put their finances towards this? Do they think that they're not going to get that back? And like, how do they? And where would they start?
Yeah, you spot on. That is how the mentality is, a, a, a lot. However, it is changing. This is why it's a conscious leader, someone that's actually walking their talk, that thinks, that knows that business ultimately is about people. And if your people are engaged and feeling heard, cared for, listened to, valued, and that they take self-responsibility to value themselves, to have authentic communication, to have integrity in the workplace. We should all be working under the company's values. They put all the checks and balances in, but very few companies put, well, what are the values of this? And are each of our employees walking their talk? So when the greatest most important thing in business, and I see it across the board, is emotional stability. People come to work, they've all got lives, they've all got things happening, they have good days, bad days. And most people are reactive. When a challenge comes in, they don't know what to do with it. They get mad, upset, shut down, or go into stress. And it's not a wholesome response. I work a lot with emotional stability, where you find the stability within yourself, and then you're not reactive. You're able to go, oh, that's interesting. Tell me more. Or what's upsetting you at the moment? Because most people take it personally and are unable to keep that doorway to the heart open, which is our vulnerability as well as our thoughts. And so in terms of the people that I work for, the organisations, they value if their staff are well and looked after and cared for and happy, and we've got a wholesome environment and culture, they turn up to work and engage and they get better results. There's not as many sick days. There's not stress. Customers just want to come in and get the care and warmth from being in that beautiful environment. These are all the unspoken and unseen benefits. But because we're moving more into energetics, and that we need to really start opening our eyes and seeing the beauty of nature and what we're really about, and actually meant to harmonise with life and in workplaces. And this makes us healthy. We don't get as sick.
Yeah.
And so it's the most important, but you do have to get just that boss that is open to understanding. If my staff are happy and healthy, that makes a successful business for me, with my social investment as well as my financial investment.
Yeah. And I feel like I'm really sitting here hoping that there are some leaders listening to this, or they can pass this on to their bosses. I know from my, an example from my life is I've worked in some really big organizations, including Queensland Health. And there's a there's a lot of, yeah, interesting. I won't say too much, but in Queensland
Yeah,
Health, and
yeah,
staff retention is one of those things. And we think like the cost of investment of, workplace well-being compared to the cost of having to retrain staff, to move staff sideways, like that is enormous. Staff retention is some of the biggest cost on your business. So if you can't provide that basics of well-being for your staff, that's going to hopefully retain them for a longer period of time, be more productive, allow their creativity to flow. Like you said, have fewer sick days, and just improve the culture across the board, then you are going to be paying a million times more in staff retention and being on the other side. It's like healthcare, right? I've been in healthcare my whole working life, and preventative is so much cheaper than once you've got the health issue in the first place, you know? So
yes,
it's such a
yes.
preventative.
Yeah. Yeah, it is, we're absolutely on the same page. And if people just dug a little bit deeper, we're all on the same page. We all want to be healthy, loving individuals, enjoying our jobs. And the thing is, that does create ripple effect, because if you're happy at work and the culture's there and you're looked after, you're giving to your clients, you're giving to your customers, when you walk out that door at night, you're going home to your family and you're well. Your well-being is filled, and it passes on to your husband, to your children, to your wife, and we are creating a ripple effect with that simple core of
Yeah.
care and consistency in looking after people emotionally, mentally, physically, and spiritually, ultimately.
And I guess on the flip side, I also know a lot of leaders or quote unquote bosses who are really beautiful, caring, and compassionate people, and they take a lot of their staff's personal issues on their shoulder. Like they're empaths, right? And so they take a lot of that home with them. So can leaders be both compassionate and high performing? Or do businesses often think that these are opposing forces? Like, how can we do this whilst still protecting our leaders?
Yeah, wonderful question. Yes. again, I'm just going to simplify it because it comes back to the individual, where we've all, to a greater or lesser degree, we've separated our head and heart to protect ourselves, to be in control, to get what we want, to do what we want to do, whatever. And it's really that simplicity of coming back into a greater alignment and understanding and awareness through feeling. We've got to use our feeling with the head and the heart. And do you know, as I say, working in lots of different environments and places, and when I'm working with individuals, often I do have to be very direct to see if we can crack open where they've got resistance or the ego might be in place and they think they're doing something a certain way, but they're not really. They're not getting the results and they're getting the same effects. And so when I say, is that true? Or there's something sitting there that you might need to look at, but you're going to have to open your perspective. They go in there and they find what they didn't know. We've got to start being more, our perspective needs to open up further. We need to be more curious. And if we want to be our true selves, we need to find those knots or those blocks that are stopping us being that. And that is the same for a leader. And so the more in integrity, if someone is, having too many sick days and they're out of integrity, the boss needs to say, what is happening? I've noticed that you've had six days off in the last month. What is happening for you for this to be occurring? Rather than you've had 6 days off, you're on notice, make sure that next month this doesn't happen again. That is not conscious leadership. And that's where someone's being in authority using the authoritarian method rather than the engagement of what is going on. And if it doesn't improve, we're going to have to look at ways that can improve because I know that you're better than that. You give them that good bit. I know you're better than that because we all have behaviours we're caught in that are negative and not working for us.
And so on that, I think many women listening, because most of my listeners are women, they're business owners, practitioners, educators, and leaders themselves. What would you say are the unique challenges that you think women face in leadership today? Because I feel some women often confuse leadership with self-sacrifice.
Yes, so true. This is the same, it's the same side of the coin. In some ways, like victim mentality or sacrificial, or the ego, I'm fantastic and, just do as I say. They're not, there's the middle ground on that is where you're your true self. And you've got to be able to be authentic and real and vulnerable as a leader, and sometimes in session, I don't quite know. I don't know a way forward there. What do you reckon? Or how do you feel that we should do that particular part of this job? Or where there's this curiosity to management and leadership. You don't have to have all the answers. Just because you've got a title and a business, you don't have to be the fixer, the problem solver, the know-all, the always have come up with ways forward, always helpful. You do have to learn to say, no, I can't do that for you at the moment. I'd love to, but it's just my plate's too full. And you don't have to justify why. You don't have to feel down. This is where you're coming back to your true self and the love that you be without having to do anything, be anything to anyone else, be acknowledged by anyone else, be seen by anyone else. That's simply who you are. Your note is love and you are enough.
Beautiful. Do you have a top 3 tips that can help women lead powerfully without burning themselves out?
Yeah. Number one, what is your intention of being in business? Now, you get real with that intention. If it's just to make money, then okay, but you're going to do it hard and tough and you are going to have stress and burnout with that. See if you can broaden your intention where your heart is involved in it. Number two, see if you can have a improve your communications and start being a little bit more real and vulnerable. Ask more questions, listen more, and you will gain clarity and a better way forward. And the third is to have some fun. Be kind to yourself and really listen to that inner critic, because it's there to take us out. It's there to make us feel small. It's there to control us. It's not on our side, yet just classify it as it's interesting, because there's no point in duality of I hate that and I like that and that's good and that's bad. We're coming back to this alignment where we don't need to give it the attention that it's been allowed to have, our inner critic.
Yeah, beautiful. And so I'd love to ask you then, after like throughout this conversation, there's been like a strong theme on energetics and coming back to the self and really understanding the self and being authentic to who you are to be able to shine and step forward and lead in your true power. I would love to ask you what you think the future of leadership actually looks like.
Well, I am an absolute optimist, and that even isn't the right word. I believe in the truth, and I believe in freedom, and I believe in love. And while yes, things are playing out very differently in the physical world, I absolutely believe we're in the middle of a huge shift into a whole new look, feel, and reality, where more and more people will gain more and more consciousness and insight, and leaders will start to change. The ones that don't want to change, everyone's got a choice. They may fall away. And what will come through is the connection for the greater good with people. And any business that holds that essence or that frequency will prosper and go ahead of AI. AI will be what AI is, but the heart resonance will lead us all home, whether it be in business or personal life.
Yeah. And now we've just got to wait for that to happen with the politics as well. So, but before we finish, I'd love to talk more about your book. So you've written a book.
Yeah.
I would love to hear more about what this book is, who's it for, like the conscious leader, and where listeners can find it.
Yeah, thank you, Harmony. Look, it's really everything that I've just been talking about. You know, for 30 years, I was in corporate, I was in marketing and international sports marketing, and it was my love of people that really enthused me in those early days. And then I took it into psychology because I wanted to learn more and grow more and understand more. And so this book is just written over all the sessions and group work and things that I've done. I put it into a funnel and I just started, what are the key points that come out with every human being, me included? And I've just written gateways from how you can come in bright, bouncy, love being, and then you just get covered over. So from the beginning, gateway 1 just gets you into remembering who you are, and then what stopped you from that, and then what happens when you challenge, and what you can do with your creativity, and how to restore familiar love. So they're the keys that I have found working with people and in myself that have unwound me. And so I've just collated it, and I've put exercises at the end of each gateway or chapter to help people fully unwind, because it's an experience, Harmony. We've got to feel. You can't just intellectually get it. There's a wonderful graphic in the book about weeds, and a weed growing above the ground, you can cut it off at above the ground because you intellectually know, I know I shut down when I'm not being heard,
Yeah.
but it doesn't change. The weed keeps growing because you only intellectually know it. When you know, I shut down when I'm not heard, and feel that, and then that means I'm shutting off to everyone, and then they don't feel heard. You get the feeling, then there's no connection, and all I really want is to connect with the person, and I'm actually causing disconnection. So when you get the root cause, in your practice, we're going for the root cause. We're not just cutting things off on the surface. And so this whole book takes you into what everyone does know deep, deep down, but you might have forgotten. And I'm just prompting you to remember, because your note's important and your energy matters.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is for the on like the individual level, so anyone can read this book as well as leaders.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is for everyone because we're all human beings. We wrap too much around what a person does. We're all
Absolutely.
one humanity on one planet,
Yeah,
and we
absolutely.
need to look after each other.
Beautiful. So where can our listeners find your book?
It's on Amazon. Dismantling Transformational Gateways to Greater Freedom, Truth and Love. It's on my website, Health. And I guess it's in all you'd have to order it from bookshops, or it's on Booktopia and things like that.
Yeah, amazing. And I'll pop the links in the show notes. Do you have an Instagram where people can connect with you?
Yes, it's spark underscore health.
Bright Spark Health. I love that. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of your energy with us today. Do you have anything else that you would like to leave us with? Is there anything you feel we haven't covered that you would love to?
Look, I just want to acknowledge you because your energy, this is the whole thing. What we're doing on this podcast is I'm harmonizing with your note, you're harmonizing with my note, and we're headed into an expansive feeling inside of us that, oh, isn't this wonderful? We're on the same page. And that's how life is meant to be, expansion. And even when challenge comes in, we don't have to confine ourselves and retract. We can stay expanded as we handle the challenge, because challenges are often just little pokes to move us into a more expanded space.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time, and thank you to all of our listeners who have tuned in. Go get the lovely Jilly's book, and we can never stop just doing that work to really open us up to the energy of who we truly are. So thank you for the work that you've done.
Thank you so much, Harmony, and everything you are doing. Very much, very much felt.